Yeah.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, and distinguished speakers. I'm Terence, your MC for today's webinar. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to this collaborative event organized by multiple parties at CUHK, including Elite, KIP, CLEAR, ITSC, and AI in Education. Today's webinar is focused on providing a practical workshop dedicated to the integration of generative AI technologies in education. Our main objective is to equip educators with valuable insights and effective strategies to enhance their teaching practices. Thank you all for joining us, and together we will discover innovative ways to elevate the learning experience for students and educators alike. In our webinar today, we have two engaging parts, a sharing session and a Q&A session. Our esteemed speakers will share their first-hand experiences of effectively incorporating ChatGPT into their teaching methodologies, and we hope that their insights will offer guidance to fellow educators. And our speakers come from diverse backgrounds and disciplines, and their unique perspectives will enrich our understanding of this topic. So now, let's welcome Professor Erwin King from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Professor King is the chair and professor of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at CUHK, as well as the director of ELITE and PI of KIP. He is currently leading several projects involving AI, and his research interests include AI, machine learning, social computing, and data mining. Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Ken to introduce and welcome today's speakers.
Thank you, Terence. Good afternoon. This is again Erwin King from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. It is with great pleasure that I introduce our esteemed speakers for today, who will illuminate us with their insights and expertise in the realm of AI and education. Our first speaker, Dr. Leon Lai, is a senior e-learning technologist at Hong Kong U. With an outstanding academic journey, Dr. Lai holds both a B of Engineering and PhD in Electrical Electronics Engineering from Hong Kong U. His expertise is in learning analytics and smart learning environment, and they have garnered him numerous academic awards, including the Best Paper Awards in conferences such as IEEE TAIL and IAENG IMEX. Moving to our second speakers, we welcome Professor Eliza Mick, an assistant professor at the Faculty of Law, CUHK. Her extensive academic background includes a PhD in law from the University of Sydney, and her expertise lies in the intersection of law and technology, specifically in smart contracts and blockchains. Professor Mick's contributions to the legal prerequisites for mainstream commerce have earned her esteemed position in the UNCITRAL expert group for the digital economy and other renowned institutions. Lastly, we're delighted to have Professor Nina Si as our third speaker. As an assistant professor of teaching at Lingnan University and a former CUHK PhD student, She brings a wealth of experience in integrating the Socrates method into interactions with AI, specifically ChatGPT, within the framework of strategic management courses. Her research focuses on conflict management, corporate governance, and ESG reporting, adds value perspectives to our discussion today. With such distinguished speakers in our midst, I'm certain that today's seminar will be a rich and enlightening experience for all. Let's engage in thought-provoking discussions and explore the vast potential of AI in revolutionizing our education. Once again, welcome to our speakers, and thank you all for joining us in this journey of knowledge and innovation. Now let's invite Dr. Leon Lai, our first speaker today, to share his valuable experience of teaching with application of ChatGPT. Here's your stage, Leon.
Yes, thanks, Aaron, for the invitation. So let me share the screen. And I would like to use a PowerPoint, Google Slides for presentation. So so if anybody can't see the screen, so please let me know. Okay, so good afternoon, colleagues and teachers and guests. So I'm Dr. Leon Lai. So I would like to talk about how I can design educational games and also support bots with ChatGPT as a co-pilot. Of course, some of the scenarios actually we can change into designing something. We can not just designing games, but also designing something else. So just again, a brief introduction. I'm a senior lecturer or senior technologist in Hong Kong U. And right now, Teddy actually has transformed into another teaching center called TELIC, Teaching and Learning Innovation Center. I'm also in IEEE being an associate editor as well as the chair for the Asia Pacific Region Educational Activities Committee. So that's the background. Of course, just a 1 or 2 page on a brief introduction on ChatGPT because I'm the first presenter. So ChatGPT actually can transform how we think and learn and work, etc. So if we give a very detailed and relevant instructions, the system can provide also a relevant, accurate response. But of course, the term here is relevant, which is very important. So it can be used as a 24/7 personal assistant, in particular on these following things. For some of the public, they may just want to use a ChatGPT as a search engine like Google, which is the last one. So, but it is not the only function. So it's not just about writing emails, writing essays, writing assignments, check for something, writing some fancy stories, etc. So we also have some other functions for ChatGPT for, in particular, summarizing. So try to import some information or even raw data and ask the system to generate some summary for you or some insights for you. And of course, it can be used for translations. Some of the studies mentioned GPT have the translation abilities already perform much better than Google already. So there are lots of functions. But today I would like just not pick some of the discussions, some of the items for discussions only. And of course, as a first example, a very general one, of course, as a teacher, we may want to think, okay, can we design an essay assignment? So I'll just use a very briefly mention this because this is not the main focus. But if you type all these things into ChatGPT, you can most likely create generate a good essay question for students. And you can even create a sample essay and then also create a rubric. And then you can also grade the essay based on the generated rubric. So this is something for most of the teachers. You can just type all these prompts and you can do this already. But actually, ChatGPT can do something much more, not just doing this kind of essay design or assignment design. So if you go to UNESCO actually published this a report on April So talking about how ChatGPT or GPT or generative AI can be used in particular GPT here. So can be used in as a different kinds of roles. And you can see some of them, of course, about search engine. Some of them will provide discussions of which Nina will talk about. And also one of the professor from UPenn, from Wharton Business School, they also provide a list of the possible list out the prompts that can be used. For example, if you want the GPT to become a coach, become a tutor, become a peer students, there are already some existing prompts available. You can check this paper for more details. And of course, if you go to this GitHub, you can even find 100 or even 200 different kinds of GPT prompts on different kinds of roles already. So maybe I can just share here. You can see with this different roles, etc. Being a translator, being a terminal, being an interviewer, etc. So I don't go in details. Today, I would just like to pick one of them that hasn't been covered by the UPenn professor, which is the co-designer. Okay, so let's talk about the presentation slide. So I would like to use 3 scenarios to talk about how ChatGPT can be used. First of all, if you go online, you shop around, you can see already there are some AI tools that can be used for generating slides, but you can also use a GPT to create PowerPoints for you too. So here shows an example. So what I did is, first of all, I need to make some brief for the input prompt. So I need to say, okay, let's make a slide deck based on the following article using Markdown format. And also I need to add the requirements. For example, how many slides do I need? How many slides are about introduction? How many slides are about the analysis of a particular topic? And we also need to define, okay, for audience, they may have some understanding on SDGs, and we can add different requirements here in the system prompt. Once we define, when we have provide a detailed instructions to the system, what's the what is the task, what is the requirement, etc. And then what I need to do is just copy and paste my own paper, which is about 2,500 words as a appendix. You can see after C# and then article. And then by importing all these to GPT, actually they can generate something like this one. So talking about from slide 1 to slide 15. So each slide, so what should be shown on screen and with the different headings, etc. So this is the Markdown format. So as you mentioned, we have to export. So it cannot export PowerPoint directly, but you can export as a Markdown format. So by doing so, and then you can actually using some converter, you can change these wordings into something like a PowerPoint slides or an outline, and then you can import this outline into PowerPoint, and you will get this one already. And then you just use one more button, and then can convert this PowerPoint into another design format, which is quite decent enough. And of course, we cannot use this for teaching immediately because we still need time for further editing, but at least it is a good draft for all teachers for preparing presentation. In particular, if you are a new teacher teaching a new course and you don't have enough time to make slides, so maybe this is the first thing that you should do, saving you maybe 30% of your time, and you can spend 70% of the time for the final editing, etc. So this is something that can be done through GPT. You don't need to subscribe any AI software, and you can use GPT to create PowerPoint immediately. And of course, ChatGPT is already free for all of you. So using 3.5, you can also do something like this. So maybe you can save 30% of your time, at least making the first draft. Okay, of course, it's not just making the first draft. It's also more on actually the PowerPoint or the GPT can do something more. So for example, you can see the previous one. So it's dull. So you just have wordings. Of course, it's short. So that means it's not talking about a very long paragraph. It's a short one. That means it's easy to digest. But we may want to we may want to include some figures such that students can understand it much more easy. So that's why the thing that I also asked GPT is, okay, for each slide, so we have 15 slides, right? So each slide, can you suggest me what figures to be shown on the slide? And when you click this one, you will realize the system will also provide you some suggestions. Some of them will be some figures, some of them will be Venn diagram, some of them will be charts, some of them will be tables. And then, of course, you can, based on the suggestions, and you can try to make them. And also, for example, if you're talking about figures, so maybe, okay, for this slide, the introduction, you should show, okay, it's about tracking SDG. So that's why can you provide, and then I can ask, okay, in order to show this thing, can you provide me a prompt on Midjourney or Stable Diffusion to draw something related to their page? So this is an example. So talking about, okay, so this is the SDG more futuristic library with different dashboards showing the different progress, etc. So this is something can be done on ChatGPT, generating a correct and more relevant prompt for Midjourney. And then another one is, okay, so for each slide, so not just figures, can you provide me a script? So but maybe you want to make this PowerPoint not just for own presentation, you want to make a presentation video. So, and using AI tools. So this is something also possible. And then the system can again generate a script. And of course, maybe you also want to get prepared. So you want GPT as the audience. You ask, oh, can you prepare that 10 questions that audience will often ask after presentation, and can you also provide me the answer? And then the system can also provide the questions as well as the answer. So such that as I am a presenter, I can get more prepared for the presentation for classes. Of course, it's not perfect. So it's a first draft. You still need to pay extra attention for further revising, injecting your personal experience, which is the most important, and make the presentation to be more authentic, etc. These can't be done by GPT. You have to include by yourself. So that's the first part. And of course, as a teacher, although I present here as a teacher, but students, if they need to also do presentation, they can do something similar. So that's why my question for all teachers here is, so if the students can also generate, so just copy and paste the PowerPoint or the slides here, the context, and then can generate the PowerPoints already, even preparing figures, script, and 10 questions. So how should we assess students in oral presentation? So this is a question for you. Okay, so let me pick another example for illustrations. So which is on developing an educational game on SDG game. So maybe for most of us, we may heard that before on SDG. So which is about 17 goals, sustainable development goals. And we want to achieve or proposed by United Nations, and we want to achieve all these by 2030. And then if you go in details, so SDG target 4.7, it states by 2030, we want to ensure all learners acquire knowledge and skills to promote sustainable development. That means we try our best to support students know about SDGs. And this is something ongoing because, for example, the THE or the QS, those ranking parties try to include sustainability in the ranking, university ranking formula already. So this will transform or promote universities to think about sustainable development and education. Okay, so this is the background. What I want to do is I want to design some product or some games which is related to SDGs, but I have no experience at all. I don't play card games. I don't play board game. The experience that when I play board game is talking about 20 years ago when I still was a secondary school student. So playing board game or card game. So I have 20 years experience, haven't touched this part. So what should I do? So of course, I don't know anything, and I'm not an expert. So, but I know the basic requirement. Okay, I want to learn something about SDG. Related to climate change. In particular, it will be 7, 12, and 13. And then I want to also let people know about SDG number 17, which is on achieving SDGs. Okay, the game should be easy to learn and play, finish within 30 minutes, and it can be expanded to not just covering these numbers, but also 17 SDGs. Target audience should be both K-12 and university. And I just use it as a reference, so that's why it's just It's just about I can do it by myself, and I may have a student intern to help me. So I don't have a team, maybe 5 to 6 students or people. I only have myself. I want to try this during quarantine because I stay in my room doing nothing. So maybe I should just try something. So I don't go those script in details, but this is what I did. So I actually, first of all, I generate those images on Midjourney. So but of course you can see those Midjourney images are talking about the climate change, etc. And this is SDG 14, which is on life on land, etc. And marine life, etc. So I use ChatGPT to generate scripts for me, and then I import those scripts into Midjourney or Stable Diffusion. And of course, for all of us, we can even use Bing for generating those images. So once I generate these, I try to introduce the game. I try to talk about game rules, etc. Before talking about game rules, so the left-hand side, right-hand side is the final one. So I get these things, I able to persuade IEEE to give me some funding, and eventually I print up these boxes, game boxes. I have a 25 game boxes. So on all these things, all are printed cards, and I will do this trial demo in secondary schools and in Hong Kong later on. So all you can see all these design, in particular these tokens, the drawings, everything are actually based on Midjourney. And the next thing is the game rule. So as I mentioned, I know nothing about game rules, right? So I know nothing about the game design, game book, etc. I really build from scratch. So what should I do? So what I did that time is, first of all, okay, so GPT, so please give me a template based on the requirements that I mentioned, and they provide a template. Of course, it's not about SDG, or then also the things are quite not important, not quite relevant, not totally relevant. So that's why, based on the campaign, it's just a pocket card game. I need to change lots of game rules, introducing different things, introducing SDG knowledge to modify the game mechanisms, etc. So once I finish that, I think, okay, I'm not an expert, so there may be in my proposed game rule, or game mechanism, there may be bugs. So that's why I asked GPT, please help me to identify missing pieces, assuming the players are actually new to this game. And then they're able to actually clarify, okay, please clarify the following terminologies, please clarify the following rules. There are something missing, can you explain more, etc. GPT can provide all these things. And then later on, I also asked, okay, please help me to, if they are real beginners, and this game can be further simplified. And also they respond, okay, please remove these four rules. Again, although I'm not new to everything, but it's very important as we need to make sure the game rules are actually we have to make the personal judgment whether the suggestions we should adopt or not. So we cannot adopt directly. We need a manual refinement, in particular ingesting manual. So those authentic learning experience. And I think, of course, the second part is, okay, so I'm not sure also after filling the missing gap, so is the rules well established, etc. And so that's why I also asked whether the rules are good enough, is it easy to correct, easy to understand, easy to learn, etc. And then GPT also provide me some suggestions. So and all of that, after maybe 2 or 3 rounds of iterations, the game is more well established, and I can try to play with colleagues. So my question here, or my suggestions here, although in this scenario it's just talking about card game for letting students learn about SDG. As a teacher, you can of course design your own game. Second, you can ask students design games. So asking students to design game to express their knowledge. So maybe in the future, we don't ask students to give presentations. We don't ask students to give essay, etc. So we can ask students, why don't you design a game to talk about your project or a certain subject, etc. And actually, the GPT itself can be act as a good game design facilitator. And then students can actually make this game to teach others also, which is also, first of all, a new way of assessment deliverables that can help students to think more. Because if they have to design games, they should be a good teacher. And they also need to think these in details. So that's why not just learning by doing, it's learning, not just learning by teaching, it's learning by design how to play. So which is much more challenging actually for students. Okay, maybe the last scenario that I want to touch on is on bots. So okay. So some of you may think, okay, GPT or ChatGPT itself is already bots already. So why do we need to develop extra bots? So that's what I want to do. So if you go, of course, some of you may access GPT directly, but maybe some of you can access ChatGPT by POE. And then you can see at the top, at the right, at the left top, there's a create bot, and you can see, and then once you click on it, you can see you can create your own bot, adding your subscription, prompt, and then etc. etc. So let me use a screen to show to you what's that. So you can see in the create prompt, and you can just click the link here. You can already create all these things. For most of us, we will use the prompt, and if you are good enough on technology, so you can use API. But for most of us, we will use prompt, and you can use the prompt here, intro message, etc. So here show some of the examples that I did. So for example, for this one is about, okay, so let me maybe change back to these slides first. We can talk about those things, demonstration in details later on. Okay, so the most important is actually define the prompt. So we need to tell the bot what should be, what's his role. So what's the instruction, what's the role, etc. And of course, there are some issues we can, which is the drawback, is we cannot strictly control what not to be shown, so etc. So this is something that we need to pay attention. So okay, so yeah, so the some colleagues ask whether Paul is using ChatGPT. Yes. Yeah, so I can talk about that later on. So first of all, I want to design a bot which is on accessible learning design, so UDL. So the aim is to facilitate teachers to make every course more accessible to students. Course materials more accessible to all students with different learning styles. Originally, it's students with special educational needs, but in my opinion, with different learning styles or learning behavior, those UDL are also helpful. So what I did is, first of all, I need to design a prompt. So first of all, design the roles. So you are an expert on UDL, suggest how UDL can help to implement some of these principles, etc. So and then with the profile options, and you can see once starting with the sharp, so you can see something interesting. So okay, profile options for interests, choices, autonomy, etc. So which is actually from this UDL guideline. So what I did is I just copy and paste this UDL guideline with all the information here. So engagement means representation, and these are the key terms, right? Key syntax. So what I did is I just copy and paste everything. I put in the prompt. I have to control the length because there is a limit on the word length or character length. And then that's all. And then that's the bot ready. So once the teacher, when the teacher using this bot, what they need to use the first magic sentence is, oh, how should I modify the assignment to make it more accessible for accessible learning? And then copy and paste the text description. So I can show you this one. So what I did is UDL, right? So what I did is, okay, so how to make this course, maybe another first. How to make this assignment. So you can maybe assignment, they pick this one. Yeah, so this is the result of. So how can I make this assignment to be more accessible for learning? I just copy and paste the course description here. So judgment criteria, presentation, all the instructions. And once I did it, and then the system can actually provide me, okay, so based on these course description, you should provide options for perception, provide options for language and symbols, and then they also provide some suggestions how to implement these phases. And then, of course, you can ask in details how to implement this. Can you give me some suggestions or detailed guidelines, etc.? So these are something that can be done. So this is at assignment level. Even you can ask in course level. So I can also put, so instead of the assignment instruction, I put my syllabus inside and then ask, how can I make it more accessible? So such that more students with different learning styles can also use it, enjoy the course. So again, so some suggestions here. So this is one of the example how I use it for the accessible learning design. Okay, I need to make sure the timing. Okay, so let me pick, okay, so this is the one of the design board. I also designed another board is on actually, we observed that actually students may have some issues, maybe during COVID or even right now with and also they have lots of activities and engagement, etc. So they have a lot of pressure at home and in school. So we want to design a learning support board. So and then such that students can get some feedback from the board directly. Maybe they may be too scared to contact the staff or teachers or support staff, etc. So we just want to test whether it's something feasible. So that's why we design a bot based on, and then we want to evaluate the impact. And then of course, we actually do something similar what I did before. And for example, okay, design, and we have to design the prompt iterative times. So of course, first of all, make the precise instructions, as I mentioned before, and then we have to check whether the answer is correct or not. So of course, first of all, is my observation is, first of all, we can't, if they can't provide a perfect answer on in particular those factual things. But if you are talking about suggestion, is okay, but you have to ensure they don't provide something silly, because students may really follow it. So this is really important. So that's why we want to do the prompt iteratively, and also clarifying instructions, update the prompt, etc. So let me use an example for illustration. So once after we designed the bot, what we did is this is an example that we asked, okay, how can I further optimize my learning environment to improve my focus on productivity? If you don't design any bot, so we use a general bot, the system can also provide some good answers. But we actually, we design our own prompt, system prompt, and here shows the answer. And actually the system provide me 10 options or 10 tips. And you can see some of them is something, of course, it's generic. Some things that we may know already, but maybe it's a good reminder for students. So provide a comfortable space, distractions, noise, use ambient noise, stay focused, etc. And we actually design 63 scenarios, so to see if the bot is okay or not. So based on the feedback, it seems that it's okay. So we actually also contact the university, those advising support team for some feedback. They think is okay, but of course they want to include Hong Kong U related content, which is not that easy. So this is the limitation of GPT. So we can say, okay, please provide something related to Hong Kong U, but you can't force the system to strictly providing Hong Kong U content only. So this is the limitation of the GPT itself. So that's my end of my sharing. So I just want to say, of course, AI or this bots is, in particular, is just a facilitator or a tutor or a coach only. So the system can't generate everything for you. You have to use your creativity to design a prompt, etc. Again, relevant prompt provide relevant results. So irrelevant prompt provide you relevant results. So AI cannot replace you, but if you can use the AI effectively, it saves you a lot of time, maybe 20, 30, 40% of the time. And some other, if other colleagues, you can use AI, they may also take out your job. So this is something that we have to bear in mind. So that's what I want to share. So we can have some more discussions later on, or if you want me to have some demonstrations on those polls, etc., we can have this during the QA. So that's what I want to share. So thank you very much.
So thank you, Dr. Lei, for your enlightening presentation. Now let's welcome Professor Eliza Mack. from the Chinese University of Hong Kong to share her insights with us.
Thank you so much, Terence. And let me just quickly share my screen. Oh my goodness, this is not the right screen. Of course, I knew something will be. There we go. Here we go. There it is. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me, and special thanks to Professor King for inviting me. I feel super honored. So I have a slightly different perspective because this whole seminar is about integrating large language models like ChatGPT. ChatGPT is just one of many into education. And I'm afraid we have to be very, very honest with each other. Sometimes the students are much faster at integrating than we are, because I'm afraid they have been integrating it in their studies before we have started integrating it into our presentations in our teaching. So my understanding is, or my assumption is, that when we integrate ChatGPT or any other type of large language model, we have to first and foremost teach the students how they work and what they can or cannot do. Because whether we want it or not, they will use it. So it's one thing for us to use it, to generate slides, games, etc. But it's yet another thing to teach our students to become expert users. So my main point here, so this is the big elephant in the room. I always start with this elephant slide. I'm not sure why, I don't even particularly like elephants, but you cannot become an expert user of a tool if you do not understand the tool. You need to understand what it can and cannot do. Otherwise, we are heading for a disaster. So the common assumption is, because please note that I teach law, and lawyers are associated with text. All we do, people have this misconception is that all we do is write and generate text. I wish. Well, I write a lot of emails if you really want to know. But so assumption is lawyers create and consume a lot of text. LLMs generate text. Therefore, large language models will facilitate, transform the legal profession and, of course, legal education. And in particular, I see in the classroom already, my students seem to be somewhat scared of large language models. What will happen to me? Will I be replaced? Because you already see sensationalistic headlines like this. You also can find headlines like this regarding teachers. Depending on the magazine, they will either replace lawyers, doctors, or teachers, or basically everyone. So my point here is not so fast. Everybody slow down. It's not that dramatic. Let's just look at what large language models can do. So please note, normally when I teach, like most of us, we get 3 hours. Of course, yes. So our classes are between 90 minutes and 3 hours and a little bit. So this presentation is a bit of on one hand, I'm talking to you. At the same time, I'm going to show you what I will tell the students, or what I believe we should be telling our students, so they will know how to use those tools. So my main point to the students will be, again, I will introduce the technical side of large language models like ChatGPT, and also explain how large language models fit into the broader field of AI. Because, like everyone else, our students are exposed to a lot of dramatical headlines and predictions that AI will transform society, etc., etc. I can see that Professor King has this poker face. Well, AI has been around for a very long time. So I think all those claims that it's going to extinguish us or transform everything are slightly exaggerated. But okay, here is the main challenge, because I think at some stage we will all have to teach our students about ChatGPT, to become better users. So we have to convey the relevant technical details. But I love what Leon said. Leon, you used the word digestible. So we have to convey the details, but we can't be too technical. We have to make the technical details approachable, and this is actually a great challenge. So first thing, we have to tell our students that there are many, many different types of large language models. So please remember that ChatGPT and the whole GPT family is just a type of a language model. And language models come in different sizes, and they also have different capabilities. Because right now we are still in the beginning, and to become an expert user, you may want to be able to actually pick the correct language model for your task. So some language models are better at translating, some are better at summarizing, and some were specifically designed and therefore they are better at text generation. There is a lot of overlap because effectively one language model can be used to do everything. But for example, an autoregressive decoder is slightly different from an autoencoder. So BERT will be different from the GPT family. So please remember, okay, I'm talking to you now and for my students, this is how I will talk to them. Please remember that GPT-4, which underpins ChatGPT, is fantastic at text generation. And that's it. I know, now I should make a dramatic pause for about 2 minutes. We don't have the time, so sorry, I'm just gonna rush forward. But I would really stop and say, guys, please note, it just generates text. And Leon, you also mentioned it a couple of times. You need to check the output. You need to verify. You need to correct. This is just the first draft. But our students, they don't get it. They don't understand it quite often. We understand it because we are experts and we are better users. They don't get it. So first, I would really explain, what is the purpose of an LLM? What can they actually do? So here again, I would spend 20 minutes with visuals because I found some very good visuals online. So large language models like ChatGPT predict the next word by assigning high probabilities to sequences of words that are likely to occur in a given language. I know this already sounds very technical, but again, this is a simple sentence. And once this sentence sinks in, that language models are not about semantics, they are about statistics. They are really about statistics. Our students may be a little bit more cautious when using them. We already are. We don't have to be reminded as educators. They don't. They don't. And the differences between large language models, some only look back at the preceding words, like the GPT family, because it's an autoregressive decoder. And other types of language models, they actually look both sides. Okay, so they have a different context window. I'm talking about the BERT family. So please forgive me, I'm not going to go into more technical details, but in the case of students, I actually will go into technical details. You may ask why, oh my God, this is distracting. They will not understand. They will not understand everything. But once you understand those details, you learn about the extent to which you can rely on the technology, because we want to prevent over-reliance. Because again, Leon, you said you need to verify, you need to check. Our students may not do it. But once they understand what it does, they might go, oh, this is just a statistical word prediction. I'm going to check this. Maybe I'm naive, maybe they won't, but look, I hope they will. So then I think we should really present, when teaching about language models, how does ChatGPT and GPT-4, how do they really fit into the whole scenario? What are the differences? So, for example, ChatGPT, how it works, how fast it generates text, what type of, how powerful it is depends whether it runs on ChatGPT, on GPT 3.5 or GPT-4. Then I will explain large language models. Then, you have to position large language models in the broader context of AI. So you have to introduce AI. And you have a subfield in AI, in artificial intelligence research, called natural language processing. So this is AI used for the purpose of performing various language tasks. And, text generation is just one of them. And then transformers, okay, here I could go on for a couple of minutes. So the recent technical breakthrough with language models was actually the introduction of transformers in 2017. Here I would have a story how Google invented it, but OpenAI, which is Microsoft supported by Microsoft, actually brought it to the market. And I have some stories about, at Google, everybody was like, oh my God, they took it and they used it. So the water cooler conversations were pure panic. What have they done? Why haven't we done it earlier? So you need a bit of anecdotes that the students understand that ultimately ChatGPT has been invented, by Google for purposes seemingly, but then OpenAI took it and made it into a commercial product. This is a commercial product. We must remember that. Okay. So I would get into a little bit more of technical details and history. I hope I could make it fun. But then I would explain how large language models are created. This is a little bit more complex because, again, for legal purposes, I'm sure each of us, some of us are educators, some of us are lawyers, some of us are doctors. So there are many, many attempts to create language models for specific areas, for specific industries, for finance, for medicine, and for law. So here I would give a bit of background, whether it can be done, what are the constraints, what are the problems, and what is the technological pipeline, how those models are created. Some students will be less interested, some will be more interested. I think it is worth covering, especially if you're in banking, finance, medicine, or law, because this is where the focus goes with those large language models right now. And I feel this is probably one of the two most important slides. Focus on the limitations, because we all get so excited about the capabilities, about what it can do. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm Central European. It's my Slavic nature. We are always very pessimistic. Everything will go wrong. Everything is horrible. So we like focusing on the negative aspects. Sorry, it's just my nature, but I think I like playing it safe. So here I'm just focusing on GPT-4, but all large language models have more or less the same problems. So first point, it doesn't really understand what it is doing. It doesn't understand the input. It doesn't understand the prompt. Not in the same way we do. This is why prompting, by prompting, I mean, the input into this, little conversational window in ChatGPT, what you put in there is super important. You have to learn to think in a certain way to convey your instructions to the language model, because it doesn't understand. It gets worse. It doesn't understand its own output, but it is brilliant because it looks so real, so believable, so that it's like when I say this to students, they will not believe me. I know they will not believe me. Oh, but it looks so good. How can it? No, it doesn't understand. Okay. It gets worse. It cannot really explain what it is doing. Wait, there is a little bit of a caveat here. It lacks world knowledge and common sense. And there's a ton of YouTube videos that I would show that sometimes it is brilliant and sometimes it makes mistakes that no human being would make because they're, forgive my English, but idiotic. So you need to show some extreme examples for the students to understand, oh my God, I really have to check the output. I cannot just use it, without any thinking. So it's extremely input sensitive. So you really have to learn how to design prompts. So I think I'm going to do probably maybe even a separate class on prompt design, how to write good prompts, how to get the students not just to learn about the limitations, but how to become good users. So learn prompting, learn prompt engineering. We can do it because we kind of already know our area. We know what we want from the model, and we are better thinkers because of our age and experience. And of course, it has some limitations because it's only trained with data to September 2021. Of course, you can use plugins, but it gets a little bit more complex. It cannot perform multi-step reasoning. It can't. It can only perform very simple reasoning. It's not very reliable. But this is the most important thing. And this is what Leon already touched upon. And this is why we have to be so careful. It is about so-called hallucinations. And please note, ladies and gentlemen, this word is the word itself is super dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, when we hallucinate, or for example, Terence, forgive me, I'm going to use you as an example. Let's say Terence unmutes himself and starts hallucinating. We will immediately know when somebody hallucinates, yes? Because it makes no sense. Okay, like imagine, or I start telling you about, oh, there is a unicorn flying outside on my terrace. You will probably think, okay, this woman is hallucinating. She drank too much, or maybe she had for breakfast. The problem is, we use the term hallucination, but this is the wrong term. It's basically nonsensical, or this is more dangerous, factually incorrect output. So you can't tell because it looks plausible, it looks coherent, it looks good. So I hope you understand why I really hate the term hallucination, because you know when it's a hallucination. Whereas when it's factually incorrect, it may look interesting, relevant, it may look plausible, it can be nonsense. So hallucinations are very difficult to detect, particularly for students who are not experts. They will just believe it will, they will say, oh, if it looks good, it must be good, because it does look good. And of course, the other problem is, that large language models, particularly GPT, the GPT family, they produce true and false statements with the same confidence, and they can provide explanations to absolute nonsensical statements. And they're very good at and they basically guns. So again, I would be showing examples to my students. This is my favorite example. I'm running out of time here. My favorite example is, I'm happy to share those slides. It's taken from one of the technical papers. It's one of the technical papers on GPT-4. Please look at this. So GPT-4 created a beautiful letter supporting a subatomic particle as a US presidential candidate. You have to read it. It is plausible. It's perfect. The argument is perfect. It's sound. It makes sense. There's only one detail. It's a subatomic particle. It's not a person. So it makes no sense. It makes zero sense. But the reasoning is perfect. So it can also generate harmful and biased content. And, again, I will show my students extreme examples, because I feel our students learn extreme examples. They will not just trust me if I tell them, oh, watch out, this input can be incorrect. And of course, please note that there is a distinction between harmful and dangerous content. For example, how to make a bomb, from factually incorrect content. And the problem is, right now, the technical efforts like OpenAI is focusing on eliminating or reducing the first category, less so the second one. So we're going to have years of hallucinations to come. So here, again, some food for thought. Students, when you are writing a paper, or this is actually a slide for law firms, what is your acceptable error rate? How comfortable are you with 10% of nonsense in your paper? Just think about it. If you're happy with 10%, this might cost you your grade. So to sum up, because I'm running out of time, I would be teaching my students, apart from limitations and capabilities, I will teach them in the next term about shots, prompts, and tokens. So how to write good prompts. Shots is a fancy term, for example, how to basically instruct language models to get the best output possible. Emphasis on best output possible, because it's never going to be perfect and you always have to verify it. So here I have a couple of examples of shots and prompts and tokens. I'm running out of time. So how could LLMs become useful for lawyers? Again, in the future, most of the effort goes into integrating large language models with search engines and knowledge bases. So once we start integrate them, the hallucination rate will drop and they will become more trustworthy and reliable. What will the future bring? This is the million-dollar question. If I knew, I probably wouldn't be here, sorry. But what we can expect is that large language models will become, they will stay here, let's just be honest. But as I said, the efforts are at integrating them. For example, right now, unless you press a special button, they do not connect to search engines. So they cannot actually retrieve fresh data about the weather or about COVID or about elections, about anything. So I hope in the future, we will, not in the future, it has to be done now, actually. I believe it has to be done now, not in the future. We have to teach our students how to be really good users. Thank you so much. I hope this was remotely useful.
Thank you, Professor Mac, for your insightful presentation. Next, I would like to invite Professor Lina Xie from Lennart University to share her knowledge and expertise on the topic.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Terrence. Let me share the screen here. So I hope everyone can see the screen now. Thank you so much for this chance to coming back to CUHK to present this topic. Well, I learned a lot from the previous two speakers, Professor Mick and Dr. Lei. So the previous talk is, well, Leon explained the ChatGPT from the technical perspective, while Professor Mick talked about very essential and highly important principles of how should we use ChatGPT. Well, for my topic, I'm going to focus on a monitored process model, which I will share my story of teaching a course. So I hope this will be interesting for you. Well, for digitalization that is happening for the last 40 years, we know there's different tiers of adaptations. So the bigger question for us is, well, ChatGPT seemed like something, not in our previous models of skills. Well, so every time since January this year that, do you ever feel, I don't know how everybody feel, but for me, sometimes I really feel quite exhausted reading the day-to-day news on ChatGPT, because it's extending from the previously industrial implication to education. And for my students, on the other side, I'm quite feeling anxiety because, first of all, like Professor Nick mentioned about, are they going to be replaced by AI? The job market, are they still be welcome? Because we are seeing the big tech companies are slaying jobs for all this year. And how about assessments? People are talking about assessment for all the conferences. We are talking about how to change the assessment, because obviously the writing seems not so difficult now. And the university are struggling with all the how to set up the disciplines and what kind of how many prompts the student can use within one ChatGPT user's account. And of course, there's ethical issues. So all these things really wears us out, because we all have curiosity and we all want to learn about the new technologies. Well, there's some good news, maybe. Just last week, we saw there's one paper by UC Berkeley and Stanford. So they are talking about ChatGPT's instability and uncertainty of behavior changing. So they even invented this word which called longitudinal drift, which means the performance and behavior of ChatGPT is not stable. especially for ChatGPT 4, because this is a more complex model using different methods, and of course, so people think, okay, it might not so economic, it might not be so cost saving, or it may be misinterpreted. Well, the OpenAI response that maybe you're just using it too much, so you notice something that you didn't see before. Although we've seen from, well, some of the tricky questions the paper authors present here is definitely we can see the ChatGPT 4 after 4 months of training, seeing the performance is less optimism. Well, come back to my course, no matter good or bad, we still need to facing the reality is, well, brilliant engineers can solve the problem on the models, but for us, we just need superficial use. So instead of fretting about the future, we'll use the power tool in our hands today. So the course I teach is strategy management. So this is a common course in every business school. Some school teach on their 2nd year, but for Lingnan University, we teach on the 4th year, which we aim to bring about students knowledge from all the BBA courses they learned. So this is a toolbox full of models and all the theories developed by different hypotheses. And we see business solutions based on mechanisms with different conditions. And they need to provide as students query process of how to start up a strategy plan. And of course, they need to come up with execution plan, which need to consider affordability and practicality. So this is itself a very complex course, I would say. Moreover, we are a service learning component course. So instead of only having students in the middle, we have social partners who are NGOs, big or small. Some are international, some are local, some are mainland operators. And we also have business partners or different levels like entrepreneurs, or we have training shop owners. Well, so we all have different perspective, expectations. For example, the social partners, well, they need to have a very sound report, and they are, well, limited by the resources and time. And they can't tell us everything because the data privacy is a problem. Well, for students, their focus is different. Okay, so they want to have high GPA. They need to catch up different courses, assignment deadlines, interest in certain industry. Because I once made a survey, do you interest in our social partner? And only 30% of people saying yes. So we can see that motivation is a problem. Well, for me, as instructors, the class and team achievements as a whole, well, the students' evaluation and learning effectiveness, as well as my own academic rewards, is things that I will be more appreciated. Well, so here we have some problems, of course. I'm not available as a student, as a social partner, as an instructor. We are all struggling with the time. And so it's hard to arrange a 3-party with this meeting. And there's endless unclear questions that social partner was really complaining quite some time that students are not knowing what to ask, or they have repeated questions. And there's also psychological factors, like in Leon's share, that students sometimes are really fed up with too many assignments, too many projects. They usually have to deal with 5 to 6 team projects at the same time in one term. So think about this as a normal full-time working professionals workload, right? So psychological factor plays a very important role in students' learning. So I have to invite ChatGPT here as an individual consultant for each of the student as well as team. Well, sorry, because of the data privacy, I was originally want to showing you like the 3 rounds of question list. So what I do is I ask the student to provide me question list. And from each of the revision of question list, I keep on asking 3 questions. Why this question being asked? For what kind of knowledge, what kind of foundations, what kind of value they raise these questions? What could be the assumption and values? So the assumption could come from, understanding the business, or may not understand that industry, And the third question is what they might get from the ChatGPT. So sometimes I even put a trial, I collect their questions, I put this question in the ChatGPT to see what kind of result will come. If it comes very straightforward answer, then I will try to divert this direction of students trying to ask that questions. So each of the team will have a very early intervention by me, kind of annoying, but we start from the week 3, which is usually not so early for all the assignments due. And I invite them to submit question lists, and we usually use 1 month to revise the question list. But during this time, they keep on collecting information while the social partner, as well as talking to ChatGPT, as well as having my classes. Okay. In general, the result is very positive. There's not so many frustrations, and this is additional consultant. Very surprising result is the social partners found the final report not only relevant but also practical, and the profound insights offered by the AI tools as well as the student come up with a very positive result. Well, the student is happy because they have the chance, being the pilot group, which my course is the first one in Lingnan University to be allowed to use ChatGPT in our course. And they can get the chance to have interaction, experiments with ChatGPT. And for me, well, it's very fruitful for me because I see the whole experimental process as well as I learn so much from the interactions with the students. Okay. But students' feedback on ChatGPT definitely is highly mixed. So here I post 3 feedback from the students. First one is about too general, too common, lack creativity and innovation. The second one is about, well, wrong answers. The database, of course, is time limited. And the third one is, well, AI sometimes can't understand what I'm asking. So, of course, hallucination is here. Okay, well, the course finished, happy, and for me is I have to review my teaching and learning process. And here is where I started to think about 2 major problems. The first one is assessment. Is it possible really based on prompts crafting? That's the first thing I'm asking, because the students definitely spend quite a lot of time trying to come up with question lists, revising question lists, and well, trying to accept, psychologically digest my sometimes very straightforward and not so nice comments. And how about the teaching process? So is that some kind of improvement that I can give some changes? Because the iterative process or refining prompts will resonate the Socratic method. But I think one of the other reasons that I want to use this method is because I also did my law degree as a master's student. So this is kind of part of my previous training. So for prompt questioning, after I reviewed all the students' prompts, because that's one of the assignment they have to hand in. So alongside their final reports and internal reports, they have to make recording with the ChatGPT's interaction, as well as copy it down and post it in a Word document to be submitted together with the final report. And I find that generally the students prefer to use 5 types of what we call the Socratic method, and left the other 5 not so commonly used. So here I have some samples. Well, definition, this is the first one, which is so commonly used, well, straightforward, is what is what? So this definition question is very commonly used, and usually it's the start of a prompts series. But sometimes I really feel unhappy because they ask the same assignment questions, which I post to them. That's definitely a no, but I know this is because they don't have any prior knowledge. Sometimes I just say, okay, I understand. And the second one is inductions. So 2 types is how, although they use some words as or define or what is, but I tend to categorize the question into different methods. So the induction, like define the efficiency, or because they post a value, which we call efficient in a certain thing, or what is commonly used. So they are asking for induction type. And the generalization, please describe or please give examples, please come up with concrete illustrations. So the students asking for generalization with the help of ChatGPT. And of course, there's dialect, like we like to promote, but we have these limitations. What are the questions that we could find, or what do you think that might be? And of course, Elantris, please describe pros and cons, and I welcome all the ideas and opinions. Okay, let's see what we're missing here could be proposed by some other examples. So first, of course, I put up a scenario, which is sometimes it's very common to see in a business strategy planning is, are we going to transferring, or are we going to diverge into a different business scope? So we call it diversification strategies. So I am a restaurant owner. So should I invest in Web 3.0? Of course, this seems like really far-fetched for the business scope. So for hypothesis elimination is that given that hypothesis, can you provide counter examples? For malutics, so it's think about unique aspects of running a restaurant in your view, and how could be potentially transform my operations, and so on and so forth for reconnection and analog. So these are prompts that can be designed with different methods under the Socratic methods. So on the left side, of course, this is a picture that I made with Midjourney, which is asking Midjourney to create as how can to give me a picture of Socratic talking to ChatGPT, and this is what I get. But on the other paper, which is published by Chang and also another scholar from UC Berkeley, and he proposed some models which we could use for prompt engineering. And these are all based on Socratic methods. So Terence has helped me to post the paper resources links in the chat box. So if anyone interested, you can read the paper. And it has some certain formulas of what should become first and what should become as questions or selections. But just one note that this paper is built on ChatGPT 3. So the prompts with my experiments, I understand some of the prompts might need some fine tuning because it's kind of changing from ChatGPT 3 to ChatGPT 4. But I guess the general framework is still quite adaptable. So for my proposed working flow with prompts as well as teaching process is we are going to have a continuous cycle of generating question lists. And why I'm so putting so much putting the question list in the center of my teaching process is I can also try to emphasize the ethic and values. Because one of the things in the strategy management current days is we need to pay attention to ethic, like DEI, as well as SDG, ESG. So by keep on monitoring students asking questions, I can also trying to give them directions and how to better emerge with different values that was supposed to shaping their future business operations. So we can come up with a more holistic, agile, and realistic strategic choices by this faster rounds of monitoring process. And we can enhance students' operational level understanding when working with social partners. Okay, so learn by Socrates, as always, that I am so fortunate to be a scholar, but I really appreciate this word is that I know that I'm intelligent because I know that I know nothing. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share, and thank you.
Terence, you're muted.
So Thank you, Professor Xie, for your insightful presentation. We appreciate the insightful questions we've received from our engaged audience. If you have any questions or for our esteemed speakers, please feel free to share them in the comment box. I will read them aloud and our speakers will provide their valuable insights. Thank you for your active participation. I would also like to invite you to complete a post-event questionnaire before you leave. Your feedback is invaluable to us and will greatly assist us in improving our future events. To access the questionnaire, simply scan the QR code on the slide. So let's begin with the first question, which is, let me see. Here is a question from our audience. I have a question. What precautions should educators take to ensure that the information obtained from ChatGPT is accurate and reliable, especially in research or academic settings? Are there any ethical considerations surrounding the use of ChatGPT in education, such as data privacy, student consent, or potential biases?
Maybe I can kickstart, but I would like to share some slides. So because actually there are some slides that I haven't been present. So I think so right now the audience actually raised a very important question is on AI literacy. And also in AI literacy, it's not just talking about how to write a prompt. It's also more about the limitation as mentioned by Lisa. So limitation, ethics concerns. So besides those privacy things, and also there are several things that students should learn before going to write the first prompt. It's about the bias, it's about the accessibility, about the ownership of the content, about misconduct, and also all about the curation or if the content may not be too relevant. So I think so second thing I want to address is the AI literacy also including how we need to teach students how to evaluate the answers. So which is not easy. So of course, as a teacher, we may say, okay, so you can also use better prompts. I can have another slide on that. So using better prompts for a more relevant answer. And then second is also using multiple AI engine to verify, cross-check the answer. It's not just using multiple AI engines. It's also about so please think about the answer and also search online to verify it. Through library resources, through your peers, through your teachers, etc. So we should not just rely on one data source or one AI engine. So this is the way how to do the cross check. Of course, we also need to criticize. And because we all of us realize that GPT will provide some write some things wrong things confidently, so that's an issue. And of course, writing a better relevant questions or relevant prompt will help the system to provide relevant answers. So actually, Elisa mentioned, so of course we can go providing examples. So providing examples will help the system to provide more relevant answers. Try to ask the system to think twice, ask the system to think step by step. Has to ask the system to check the answer again. So all these, although it's a very simple prompt and actually help to improve the system accuracy already. But of course, the gatekeeper is actually the student or the user itself has to verify the answer, not just by single data source, but multiple verify through multiple ways. Just like us doing research, we have to do data triangulation, right? So we have to verify the answers or the observation multiple times. Another thing that one of the question mentioned, so how we can come up with the markdown. So the left hand side is the answers, right? So we can generate this by ChatGPT, and what we can do is just copy and paste these answer to, for example, these websites, and then it can come up with this environment already. And then we just need to download the Markdown. And then you can, once you download the Markdown file, and then you can open the Markdown file, or you can actually convert this Markdown file through another tool. So convert from the Markdown file to the PowerPoint, and then you can create, and then you can generate the PowerPoint slides already. So this is a quick demonstrations on how to convert the GPT answer to a PowerPoint. So that's my short explanation. Okay, so that's my response.
So do other speakers have other opinions on this issue?
Yeah, I can make a little comment. So basically, if I understand the question correctly, there is no way of alleviating hallucinations apart from checking the output. Right now, so I think, Leon, you said the same thing. So there are multiple methods being developed, right? One of them is called retrieval augmented generation, where language models are connected to external knowledge bases. The model itself stays because this is the way it has been trained. It just does statistics. So if you want to have, verification of facts, you need to connect it to something that's outside. So this is where the research, this is where the work is going. But otherwise, I just have to agree with Leon. I mean, you just have to verify whatever it spits out.
Of course, we can always write something. So don't try to use your imagination. Write something is well connected to the existing information. We can include this kind of prompt in this kind of instructions in the prompt, but we cannot guarantee the system controlling what the system is saying or not to say. Yeah.
So we received another question during Professor Mac presentation. So let me read the question aloud. We have a question about humanizing LLMs by talking about their inaccuracies as hallucinations. It's almost if the whole media and AGI industry and people want us to think these are thinking beings rather than just statistical algorithms. So, Professor Mac, do you have any response?
All I can say is yes. I mean, this is, as I said earlier, I mean, this term hallucination, I think they're trying to deflect our attention from the simple fact that those are false statements of fact. Those are inaccurate facts. I mean, those are basically lies and nonsense. And this whole term hallucination is misleading because you can't tell, because it looks so good. So I remember I went on a wild goose chase for 2 days because I made this mistake that I asked GPT something where I did not 100% know what the answer should be. Because normally I only ask it when I know what the answer should be. And I can verify it without, double checking 50 times. And it was so beautiful, whatever it generated. I actually asked a technical question. So it was not a question of opinion. It was actually about machine learning and creating data sets. And it took me 2 days because I kept on reading it a couple of times. Looked okay. I thought I'm going to do the thing, like copy, paste, insert in a paper. Didn't work because then I got, oh my God, this is actually false. And it didn't look like a hallucination. So there's a very good point that the question made, that the person who asked the question made. We tend to make it like cute. Oh, it's like a person, it makes mistakes. It's not a person. It basically generates false output. And it does it in a very impressive way. So we tend to miss it.
But
so there is sorry.
But Eliza, are you saying that the human don't make mistakes?
Well, no, absolutely. This is what I'm not. We make mistakes. Absolutely.
And we tell lies, and we tell even
all the time. But
exactly.
Yeah, but what is the of course we do.
So the point is, I think that the question was asked that whether we treat LLM models, are we treating them as humans? If they act exactly like humans, they can make very elegant.
I don't think they act exactly like humans because nobody's able to generate text at this speed. in this
Okay,
amount at this
no,
speed
no,
on everything.
I know, but speed aside, okay, you know, you could generate in 3 seconds, or I could say that this was written by a human in 10 hours. Okay, so you're not generating, but the output, if you're just looking at the output, my question to you is, can you say that this is a human? You know, the point is whether this is human. Can this be counted as human? Did it pass the Turing test of intelligence? And I
No,
think
it can't be
has.
counted as humans. No, no.
No,
And
it
we
can
know
be
there is
counted
no
as
Turing test.
there's no Turing
We know
test.
there is no Turing. I mean, Turing didn't design a test. Turing designed an imitation game, and then somebody else turned it into a Turing test.
So if you cannot distinguish, for example, okay, a ChatGPT versus a human, would that be equivalent to a intelligence in a human?
I don't know. This is completely not my area of expertise. I am a lawyer. I don't trust anyone. I verify the output. But there's also something called, I'm not sure what the term is, automation fallacy, but there is a specific term that humans tend to trust computers more than they trust other humans. Yeah, when a lawyer writes an email, we carry professional liability insurance. We are scared to say the wrong thing because our lives are, I'm talking about the legal profession, about doctors. If we say something that is not true, if we provide wrong advice and we can't justify it, we are in deep trouble because a practicing lawyer might lose their certificate. And here, who's liable for the result? Not OpenAI. It's human-like. I fully agree with you, but I mean, it's not human.
Mm-hmm. No,
I'm always trying to use, yeah.
I fully
I'm always
understand.
using a couple of professions. I'm using a couple of professions because it's one thing, creative writing. Do whatever you want. It's quite good at this. It's quite crazy. It comes up with all sorts of funny things.
For
But
fictional
for
writing,
law and
yes,
for medicine, yeah.
it's a different story. I agree.
It's a different story, yeah. But it looks human. I agree with you. You can't tell.
No. I mean, technically, we're working on fact checking for LLM models as well. So utilize you mentioned about knowledge base and all that. So this is a side point. We could discuss this offline, but that's my research work as well. Yep. Okay, Terrence, maybe we could continue. Whether there, well,
Sure.
Nina, do you have any feedback or thoughts? Leon?
Basically from my students' responses, they immediately can catch up that hallucination is here within 5 questions. So they usually stop asking questions within 10 questions because they know that's like the ceiling is there because the knowledge of this let's say database is kind of a way of retrieving data from a database. But this is much faster because usually I read around 10, 15 pages of Google pages to compose an answer. But it could be wrong because it's still based on my, temporary understanding of reading these 10 to 15 pages. Well, for them, they know that, okay, the limitation and the trial, so they stop there. But the thing is, because for my students, they stop when they come to the stage of really need to putting something down. So they know they can't asking very straightforward question like, come and do my homework, come and do this assignment for me. But to collect information and compare with other resources, I think that's the capability that we can retrieve from ChatGPT. And this provides much faster, feedback loops, because that's what I want, because we have so many different stakeholders, we have different perspective of needs, and the time pressure is one thing to achieve, and the other thing is the outcome still have to be maintained as a relevant, good quality. So the abundant information provides the justification of the reports, no matter to serving the assessment purpose or the stakeholders' purpose.
I agree on what Linda mentioned. So after using ChatGPT for half years, I realized actually we should not use it as a search engine. So we should use it as a language, a content synthesizer, a feedback evaluator, a content synthesizer. We need to provide raw materials or raw data for them for the synthesis or for analysis instead of relying on the existing database in the ChatGPT system. So that's my observation after using it for 6 months. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just for your information, because in my course, I didn't set up the ceiling of question numbers for the students can ask. They actually have the freedom for use, and most of them just stop at 7 or 8 questions. So that's how I collect. I have 3 classes around 19 groups. So I have all the samples. Yeah.
Very good.
So we have got another thought-provoking questions for our speakers, which is, do you think the LLMs will create more inequality as some parts of the world or students in developing countries who don't have a change because of technology gap and accessibility, and why?
I can start first. So that's why I think so university as a university student, so because I'm supporting university teachers and students, so as a university, so should provide a tool for students. And then of course for the general public, I think there are some existing tools, for example the POE. So if you're able to access the Google account, so you should be able to access a POE and then use the multiple different kinds of engine. So of course, the limitation here is that POE will also read your conversation. So maybe they can generate some other values based on those things, etc. So that's the limitation. But as a university, we should provide the basic tools for students. For general public, have to rely on commercial tools. Then POE is some of the options. So of course, they are, if you're able to use, for example, one of the question mentioned. So is there any can CUHK teachers or students using Midjourney? So the answer, of course, the US team CUHK may have the answer, but for us, for me, is we also have a stable diffusion online version through Hugging Face, etc. So there are already some free cloud surface at deploying that those models. Although the response may be a bit slow, but actually all the general public can also use them. So I think of course the problem is the Wi-Fi connection or internet connection. Then that's another issue.
Well, I would say that inequality is a norm of a certain social structure. So the first one is, how should we look or insert the norms and to uphold the norms inside the ChatGPT's world? Because that's the database that with information we poured into no matter what kind of format it is. But the other thing is, when we retrieving the information from the database, are we providing a very certain and well-justified models for asking questions? So the prompt engineering actually reflects the values, and that's why one of the things that I want to try to polish in the teaching process is to make sure when they're asking questions, they consider the value and ethicals, especially we call the DEI issues in the recent years. So, well, these 2 ways of information flow will actually I would say, can even the inequality for the developing countries, instead of people saying the technology sometimes can be only the tools of the of the upper level society to control the lower ones. So I would not say that because actually the cost for this technology is still being greatly taken by in developed countries. So most of the trainings, machine, cloud, calculation is still taken by the developed country instead of developing countries. But the developing countries are sharing the resources, the available prompts, and the chatbot definitely is achievable by any people so as far as they have a phone. So I don't think there's a gap between this.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit worried. I know that we have access, but I think the penetration may be as different in different countries. So I think that if very similar to a digital divide, I really think that there is an AI divide, but we need to work together to help to bridge that gap. You're right, they have access, but not everyone, well, not most people would have access, like Hong Kong people. Hong Kong students. That's all. Yeah.
I think that's a politically divide instead of economic divide.
Oh, but I can echo. Actually, I read a news or report a few days ago. It's talking even in US, only 1/3 of people heard that or using that. So although they can freely accessible all kinds of LLM, only 1/3 of them use that or heard of that. So that's why it's also as a teacher or a professor how to encourage more people to try it and also know the limitations and also the danger. So I think that's very important. Yeah.
And we have got another interesting question from our audience. Have you disclosed how you use ChatGPT to your students and what is their response?
Well, I can say a couple of sentences. I started playing with it quite heavily in January. Yeah, I was sharing experiences that but I was using it for research and basically, you know, I wanted nothing creative, very factual, and I basically wasted a lot of time. But please note, I was using it kind of for the wrong purpose, intentionally, because I was trying to generate text for a legal paper and ask it some questions. And then, you know, the whole, I mean, I loved it. I just loved the process. But then, you know, it took me so long to verify and to, you know, pick it apart that I said to my students, guys, if you want to use it, please use it. Just remember, you're responsible for your grade. You can't have an excuse. Oh, I mean, do whatever you want. If your paper is good, it's good. But I kind of also wanted to see whether it is possible to write a bulletproof paper with good references. Because we all know as educators, especially in tertiary education, I mean, the first thing I look at are the footnotes. Has the students done the reading? If you don't have footnotes, I don't care about your paper. Sorry. So yeah, I was encouraging them and warning them.
Yeah, I totally agree with Professor Mick. I also found the students, if they are lacking references, which means they either not paying attention to the rules or they are not reading enough. So only having a report, you know, with 3,000, 4,000 words is not giving a full mark. Even it looks logically sound, it doesn't give me like a full ground of giving a full mark. Definitely it's no. But for the students to involving ChatGPT, the initial idea for me is to let them to explore, because when we cooperating with social partners, they usually with different background, and the students without industry experiences, they usually have many queries about how such things was done in an actual way. So could be quite far apart from what they read from the books. You know, they read from the books is about theories and logistics and about theories and models, but the logistic and operation side, they're still kind of lacking knowledge. So that's my initial purpose. And they adopted very fast. They even got like all the access just within 1 week. So all the students, we started incorporating in the beginning of Feb. So within 1 week, all the groups have access.
And I also echo on what Nina mentioned. It's actually, so as a university teacher, what we should do is to provide authentic learning experience. So these are something that, and also the context itself. So the GPT can provide the context. We are the one that can provide context. For example, I teach educational data mining in Faculty of Education. So I will talk about, okay, so in university in Hong Kong, you how we do this and that, etc. So these are something that GPT can provide. So by doing so, students have authentic learning experience. They able to write a better prompt, more relevant prompt, and then of course at the end we have a better answer. So that's the university teacher. So providing context, that's the important part.
So here is the last question for our seminar. What do you think about the ownership of content? Do you think we have to do citation on AI generated content? Also, if we build an AI model ourselves, do we still have to cite the content? Also, the large language model shall be grabbing contents from many sources from the internet. What do you think about the issue? And do you have any ideas how to solve and what we should do to tackle the issue?
Well, I would like to use my assignment as example. Definitely he or she cannot take any contents like by copy paste from the queries with ChatGPT. And because I also asking about the full text of their Q&As, so I know they definitely cannot do that. The ownership of the content, I would not put a justification here because this is out of my knowledge, out of my professional knowledge. But just like talking to a consultant, talking to a friend, you get some certain pieces of informations. We still need to get it verified and get it sorted out, no matter it's from Google pages or from academic paper or from reports or news, it should have a source. And if we didn't do that, we are lacking that part of education purposes. So education purposes is critically to adopt and create knowledge. And if we are not doing that, we are not creating any new content.
Actually in Hong Kong, we also if students want to provide citations for the prompt or a GPT answer, so of course they can be a certain format. So for example, I have to, or for example, in the citation have to mention the prompt you have used, the date you go for searching, and then etc. So providing details how you come up with these answers. So that's of course we have a very long explanations, but in short, it will be the prompt you use and also the date and also the purpose, etc. Yeah.
I think I can make, as a lawyer, I can make one contribution. I wouldn't use the word ownership here. I would be very, very careful. It's an IP issue, intellectual property issue. I would basically read the terms and conditions of OpenAI. It's all there. I'm sure they have thought about it. But I find it very interesting what Nina and Leon have said. I mean, is citing GPT. I mean, I treat it as I would never. Okay, I don't know how to say it because I just started thinking about it. I wouldn't cite it because it's not a knowledge base. It's not a source of facts. It's a text generator. So it's not a source in itself. But having said that, so I don't like the word citation. Please forgive me. I'm being formalistic. But then I was listening to what you said, Leon, and you said, okay, so because citation usually points to the source of something, where did you take the facts from or statements? Whereas this is, as I said, text generator. But then you said, okay, how did you get this text? And this is, where you could provide the prompt. And I think this is the way to go. This really set me thinking. So my only objection to what you said is to use the word, indicate your source. Because I hope Irwin, you agree with me. You can't really treat it as a source.
Yeah,
if it's a generator.
Yeah. So
But
because
I mean, I like the idea. I like the idea of citing or providing the prompt. It's a brilliant idea.
yes.
I mean, we are still in the beginning. It's just, I don't know. It's so interesting.
Yeah. You also remind me, actually, even we use the same prompt, the GPT will give you different answer because it's we have the randomness inside. Yeah, so I should not use a reference or something like that. So, but it's a way to explain
that's another problem.
how GPT contribute for these answer. Yeah, so something like that.
Yeah. It's good that we're talking about it because, I mean, this is the problems that we will be having the next couple of years, even to formalize the terminology. Because, as I said, citation is not quite, because it's not a source, but then, you have to say how you generate it. So I think spot on. Let's just see what we come up with.
Well, I understand it might not be a source, but citation, the meaning of citation to prevent plagiarism is, I think, is necessary. I think that, again, this is maybe a self-monitoring thing. So, if you put something out generated from ChatGPT, if other people thought that you actually produced it, and that really constitutes plagiarism. So this is why I think citation may be needed because, or maybe a prompt is needed or something is needed so that we could say that this is actually generated not from me, but from someone else. But I use, and because I could use it for grammar, improving grammar, and not necessarily generate everything.
Yeah.
And that will be fine because we don't cite spelling checkers, Microsoft spelling checkers. But I think for this case, I will advocate that, something needs to be done, whether it's citation, whether it's prompt, acknowledgement, at least some sort. Yeah.
I think, I think it's a good idea. I think the word acknowledgement, I think the terminology is still crystallizing because it could be, I'm not sure how many of you use WordTune. I love WordTune. I find it very, very sophisticated and it's being expanded. It has more and more capabilities. But you know what? I never thought about putting WordTune into acknowledging that I used it. Because I actually haven't used it in any of the papers yet, but I want to. It's just really a tool that makes things prettier because, you have to insert your own text. That's the difference here.
Yeah, but then it's almost like I'm sorry. Nina, go ahead.
I would totally agree with Ivan's words saying acknowledgement, but on the other side is if this resources or this package of knowledge will the author who used this resources willing to publicly showing in open site, because having this stabilized and formalized text will be contributed to the knowledge base as a whole, or information database as a whole. And only on that basis, the acknowledgements or let's say citations or refers can make a valid.
Okay, that's interesting thought.
But Professor Irwin, I need your input on something that Nina said. Because Nina, did you use the word knowledge base?
Yeah.
Yeah, but LLMs, transformers are not knowledge bases.
But like I say, garbage in, garbage out. So it is based on knowledge base. So so if you use a tool like Google's PageRank algorithm, what is it based on? It's based on data or websites. So can you say about Google PageRank algorithm, very similar to what LLM is doing in terms of referring you to certain things? I think that we're getting very settled now, more and more settled. And I think that as time goes on, AI will be much more intelligent, and it's going to be more and more difficult for us to distinguish the line between, again, what is intelligent and what is artificial intelligence. That's all. Again, my personal feeling. Good, Terrence.
Okay.
I think that we have overrun the time. No?
Yeah, I will end now. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for being part of this incredible webinar. We are thrilled to see such enthusiasm from our audience. For the latest updates and information about KIP, be sure to follow our LinkedIn and Instagram accounts. Once again, we extend our heartfelt gratitude for your support in making this practical workshop a resounding success. None of this would have been possible without the support of our esteemed speakers, partners, and all of you. It has been an honor to serve as your MC for this workshop and also the past seminars. Thank you once more for joining us today, and we eagerly look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you,
you.
Leon, Eliza,
Yes,
Nina.
thanks for
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Have a weekend. Yes, have a great weekend.
Lunchtime. Yay.
Yeah.
Late lunch.
Bye.
Thank you all. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Thank you, Leon. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.